The Nintendo 64 is a great system with excellent graphics, games, and hardware. However, the controller has not aged that well, especially with its strange design and its terrible and unreliable analog stick. So let's take a look at an upgrade for the Nintendo 64 controller, the Retro Fighters Brawler 64. Let's get started. The design of the controller is a very traditional and comfortable design that most modern day controllers use. The form is very similar to the Nintendo Switch Pro controller and the Xbox 360 controller, which are both very good controller designs. The buttons are almost exactly the same as the Nintendo 64's, but some of them have been moved to create a more traditional Nintendo 64 styled setup. The Z buttons are on both sides of the controller, so you can decide which one you would like to use, and also you have easier access to all of the buttons on the entire controller, which is nice because the original Nintendo 64 controller couldn't allow that to happen. Now that there are two Z buttons and they're underneath the L and R buttons, they are now triggered just like the Xbox 360 controller, which is pretty cool. They don't really make a difference because the Nintendo 64 controller never had them, but for racing games, and games where they're heavily needed, they do feel nice. The thumbstick on the original Nintendo 64 controller can get weak after a while and can become loose. The Brawler 64 really does fix that issue, as it has a traditional thumbstick, which is very smooth with a simple rubber top. As this is a third-party product, the build of the controller is extremely high quality. The plastic matte finish doesn't feel cheap at all, and it really does feel like a Nintendo quality product. It does feel a little light, I suppose, but there aren't a lot of components inside the controller anyway, so I trust that the controller is still a quality product. With the original Nintendo 64 controller, my performance in games weren't that great, especially when playing 3D platformers. But with the Brawler 64, it just feels natural and smooth when controlling Mario in Super Mario 64. The controller really works well with lots of games, but here are some of the ones that I felt worked the best. First off is Super Mario 64. It really worked really well, and I was surprised on how smooth Mario felt, especially when doing backflips and the different moves you can do. It just felt really good. GoldenEye 007 felt really good as well, especially how it's easier than ever to shoot, so that's definitely a nice thing. The controller is not stiff, so you have some pretty good fast movement going on. Pokemon Snap felt completely different with this controller, just because of how smooth it was to center the camera, so I can get a lot of better shots. Banjo-Kazooie is a lot easier with the Brawler 64 controller, just because of the amount of moves there are in the game, and it just is really improved upon, and pretty much just makes the game a lot more fun. Racing games like Mario Kart 64 and Beetle Adventure Racing work really well too. With the improved analog stick, it really helps in terms of the performance, and when you're racing, it just feels really smooth and really satisfying, especially when doing sharp turns. If you enjoy playing Super Smash Bros. 64, or are even in the competitive field with the game, then you definitely want this controller because it's pretty much made for this game. It delivers a lot of accuracy, and it's just a lot smoother, so you'll definitely enjoy playing this game with a better analog stick. A game that I haven't really been ever good at is Star Fox 64, and I blame the controller. But the Brawler 64, it just made my performance a lot better, and it just changes the entire game, because now that the analog stick is a lot smoother, you can really target things correctly, and you have a lot more accuracy when you're flying, so it's so much easier. Really, this controller does change the way you play the game. Oh, and one more thing which I almost forgot is the accessories. Of course, the different packs like the Rumble Pack and the Transfer Pack work really well. The Rumble Pack is a little heavier than the controller, so it might not be the best idea to play with the Rumble Pack because it doesn't feel that nice, to be honest, but it works. Overall, the Brawler 64 is certainly the best third-party Nintendo 64 controller ever created. With its very good design and high quality build, it's definitely worth the money and will change your Nintendo 64 experience completely. Which is why the Retro Fighters Brawler 64 gets a 10 out of 10 for its near flawless and modernizes retro gaming. Well, anyway guys, that's about it for the video. If you did enjoy it, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button to see future videos on the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.